Hi everyone, it's Lorraine. Just adjusting my camera a little bit. So nice to be with you all again. It seems as if these videos are turning into a series. So today I am talking about the ups and downs of healing, why you gotta feel it in order to heal it. And I want to make one big distinction. Just want to angle this a little bit more. I'm not talking about supporting suffering and being in a state of misery and of physical pain without getting any assistance. I'm not talking about that. What I'm really want to dive into with you is where I see so many people having difficulty when different feelings and thoughts come up. As I look back on my own journey and my work in the late 80s and 90s with a lot of therapy clients, at the time when we would be talking about feeling, I was still encouraging people to do a lot of positive self-talk and affirmations and really to soothe themselves when intense emotions came up. That was also during a time when the way in which we were working through feelings was very, very cathartic and very physical. And of course now, while some of that may still be applicable in many situations, I have certainly found that in my own journey and in working with clients that we're able to move through these releases with a lot more ease and grace. What I feel is critical in being able to do that is having a strong internal foundation. That is how well you get to know yourself. And the two key components that I think is essential for a strong internal foundation is to love yourself deeply. That's obviously it's ongoing because that's not something we've really been shown and taught how to do. And also the connection that you have with your soul, with your divinity. There is great strength and power that comes from that relationship. I know it has lifted me up many times when I've been on my knees in very, very deep pain and very deep emotion. And I know that this year for many, especially people in my community, we have been talking about that, while there's a lot of postings that talk about big breakthroughs this year and things getting lighter and easier, we're still working through a lot of density and we're still working through a lot of layers as well as individually in our groups and collectively. So that's why I think talking about this topic today feels very timely. Thank you, An, for joining me today. So as I thought about what I wanted to share, because these are big topics, there's a lot of layers and things to talk about. So I want to just give you some points that I think is really important. So because of the work that I do with people on all levels of health, emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical health, I always come back to looking at whatever people are dealing with, that there is some emotional wound that is often, I want to say always, but that is often at the genesis of any physical ailment. That's why I believe so strongly in the mind-body connection. And it's not unusual that when we're dealing with any kind of physical pain, that our first instinct is to want to lessen that pain, and that's really normal that we would want to do that because it takes center stage of our focus. I've been talking about the importance of feeling, of giving yourself permission and the space to be loving and open and willing to feel what's going on inside of you, including being present in your body, because we can be so busy during the course of the day that we're not really in our bodies at all. We're so much in our head, we're so much in the doing of things. So since I talk so much about the mind-body connection, I always get asked the question, how do I get rid of this? And I take a deep breath because I understand. And I say it's not about getting rid of anything. And I understand that it's difficult for that person to hear at the time, especially if they're dealing with unwelcome, uncomfortable, painful feelings, many times not even realizing what they're feeling. We become so accustomed to being numbed out, to looking for ways to get rid of our feelings through distractions, through affirmations, all of which have their place. But what I think that has happened for many is that we've gotten into the habit of moving away from ourselves, of moving away from our thoughts and feelings that we have labeled as negative, unwelcome, that we don't really release anything. What we're actually doing is just, the metaphor that comes to my mind is like just taking a broom and moving it around the room and just putting it in another corner. And if you repress long enough, it's going to bust out in different ways. Like if you think of trying to plug a hole and you're not creating a valve for that water to be released, it's going to start opening up other holes. And this is what I think is happening for so many of us, is that we're being caught unaware. We're having outbursts. And we can certainly see it in the world where people are having these explosions because they haven't had, in my opinion, a positive outlet or a means to be able to express themselves in healthy ways. And so it builds up like a pressure cooker and then it explodes. It either explodes outward or it explodes inward. So when people come to me and say, how do I get rid of it? What I'm essentially saying is, when you take that approach to any unwelcome thought or feeling that you have labeled out of habit to be negative, then you are already moving into a battle position against yourself. Anything that you judge, that you rail against, is a judgment against your humanity. It is where we move into that fight response because we're in a state of denial. And when we move into battle, it's usually about trying to win over something. And so you're trying to win over yourself, which, if you think about it, is a pretty wild thought, don't you think? And when we're in that state, because, I have seen how powerful love, appreciation, and acceptance is, and being able to create that welcoming space to sit with whatever it is that's coming up. What's interesting about feelings that I think that people forget is that they're energy. All of our thoughts and feelings are energy. We're energy beings. So when something is coming up that feels painful, let's say, we're being invited to feel, to understand what that pain is about, because it's part of our history. And in the non-resistance of being that welcoming space, it will move and release. And the more that we can be in that place of inquiry and not try to get rid of it, not try to fix it, not try to cheer ourselves up, not try to figure out a way to get away from it as fast as possible in the most numbing way that you can. And I'll tell you, it's not about doing this perfectly. It's about starting to learn how to be present for whatever it is that your heart needs to release, whatever it is that you've been holding on to that is looking for an outlet, so that you don't have to carry it in your mind, in your heart, and in your body anymore. And this is what we're learning how to do. And not to shut down because you don't like it. I know that it's also very difficult for people who witness somebody that they care about going through a distressing time. The tendency is to want to try to help them to move through it as quickly as possible. And the truth of that is that it's really in our desire to help another, it's really twofold. Yes, we care about that person and we want them to be happy, we want them to be well, we want them to be able to move through a lot of these experiences. And also, the sooner and the quicker that they do that, the better we feel in our own perceived state of helplessness, of observing what that other person is doing and knowing that we can't save them, knowing that we can do so much that can be very helpful, but that that person has their own journey to walk. That's not a comfortable place. I can talk about that and still find myself with my friends as I observe them experiencing things that I see as being very difficult. And I want to save them. I want to um, help them to move through that as quickly as possible. And that's essentially what our minds does. It doesn't really allow us to fully embrace whatever emotion. It could be feelings of anger, of sadness, of guilt, resentments, or loneliness. These are part of our human experiences. We are here to feel. We are here to feel the full scope of feelings, not just certain ones because we like them. We need the contrast. If we don't feel anger, then we can't know love. If we feel resentments, then we can't really know what it is to forgive. If we don't have dark, we can't recognize light. So everything serves a purpose. The key is being able to, again, come back to that space of appreciation, acceptance, and love for the experience itself that is coming up in our lives to help us to move forward, to be the next and highest version of who we are. So I want to share something that I think will bring some of my points together. I have a favorite client who is usually the go-to person in people's lives. She has very, very big shoulders, and she carries a lot of people and responsibilities on her life, on her shoulders and in her life. And in order to do that, all of these years, she has had to push a lot of her feelings aside because of feeling that she needs to be there for other people. And so she never really learned how to be fully present with our feelings, because we can move through things very quickly when we don't resist and we don't fight. But if you've been stuffing feelings for a long period of time over and over and over and over, when that dam breaks, so to speak, it can feel like a tsunami hitting, because it's not just the experience that you're having, it's all the experience from the past that start cascading. Because our bodies don't recognize, I have sadness about this that happened in 1985, and this sadness that happened a week ago. It's whatever that energy of sadness is, it will come, and it can be at a level of intensity that is much more powerful than the situation that a person that you might be facing at that particular time. And I'm just using that example of sadness because I often find a well of sadness and grief underneath the energies of anger. So she had messaged me because she was, her strong armor was breaking. And of course I sat here thinking, yay, this is so good. Because this is what we've been working towards, is breaking through some of that armor, to let some of these feelings out that has been also causing her a lot of health issues over the years. And so she's been so courageous and so open and so willing. And of course, when you've been keeping everything nice and tight inside, it's not like you just let it all come down. It has to come down in pieces. And so that evening, things were really starting to fall apart, and it scared her because she did not know how to work with it. Well, who showed her? Who did she have in her life that really, when she had feelings coming up, welcomed her and supported her and knew how to guide her through? In fact, I would put that out to you. For any feelings that you have difficulty with, who did you have in your life growing up who showed you how to be and process what you were going through, so that you would learn some healthy ways to support yourself in this life of lots of feelings and lots of creating of our life experiences. So if you don't have models and you don't have people who can hold that space for your greatness to emerge and only get focused on whatever story you're telling or whatever drama is being created from that wound, they can't really be there to support you. And what supports one is going to be different from another. So she contacts me and says she can't stop crying. This was a little bit later in the evening, and her question is, could I give her some advice that would help her stabilize? And I'll tell you what I said to her. Cry. Cry your heart out. And I also knew that she would have difficulty doing that. And so, divine timing, I love it. I happened to be free at that time, and I asked her if she would come on to a live call with me, and I worked with her while she was in the throes of the emotion so that I could show her how to navigate, how to be fully present with her feelings without getting stuck in the story. This is a tricky place for a lot of people, is they will go back into the story when emotions are coming up. They will continue to ignite that story, but they will not move the energy because they're too much in their head and they're not where the energy is really the most alive. And so I worked with her for about an hour, and I showed her how she could hold that space to really honor the emotions that were finally breaking through this huge wall that she has had to carry for a long time. And at the end of the conversation, she was still crying, which was okay because we don't let everything go in an hour's time. And I kind of chuckled when she said to me, I wish that I could let all of this go at once. And my thought was, no, you don't, because that could be such intensity that would be more than we could actually handle. At least that's, I believe that there is a brilliance that allows us to let things go in pieces so that it becomes manageable and it doesn't become overwhelming and it doesn't become debilitating, because it's energy that we have to continue to process. And so I encouraged her to keep those feelings in ways that were manageable for her, and that was, if she needed to distract a little bit, to go ahead and do it. I'm not talking about being in suffering. I am talking about being present and learning how to show up for yourself, to honor and respect your history, to honor and respect the pain that you have experienced, to be that loving and welcoming place for yourself. And if this is part of your work with others, this is you being able to navigate your own terrain so that you can show others how they can become more alive, more present, and be able to experience the full breadth of emotions that don't have to be painful all the time. There can be, believe it or not, in working through pain, there could be joy, there could be love, there could be lightness. So there's so much misunderstanding about what it means to really feel it, so that we can move into these experiences of healing and truly release what is no longer serving us, what we're ready to let go of, what we're ready to love, what we're ready to forgive, to let go of the resentments and all of these heavy energies that we've not known what to do, and to find out that we don't have to be afraid of ourselves. We don't have to be afraid of feeling something. That we can thrive through any experience by being fully alive. So I want to leave you with those thoughts. I welcome any comments that you have and any questions that you have. And there's probably going to be a part 5. I don't know what that's going to be or when that's going to be, so I will keep you posted on that. And I want to thank you for spending some of your time in being with me live and listening to this replay. And please share this with others if you feel there will be others who would benefit from the things that I've shared. Again, this is the tip of the iceberg. I've just given you some initial points that are really important that I felt I wanted to share with you today, and there is more. So please be gentle with yourself on this journey. This is your humanity that is struggling. Your soul is very clear about who you are and knows how to move us forward in the most beautiful and graceful ways. But it's our humanity that is struggling, and this is the invitation that we have right now, is coming back into alignment with the truth of who we are. So it can be a beautiful journey. You don't have to love it every moment, but it doesn't have to be as hard and as difficult. And this is unlearning all those patterns that have told us that it's not okay to feel, that we have to shut things down and look good. Well, that ain't working anymore. And so this is about becoming alive and living an authentic life. And I will tell you, it is a lot easier to live from this place than it is to live from a place of pretense and having to hold everything in. That is exhausting. So, I love you all, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.